Welcome to the Virtual Foundry podcast with Brad and Tricia.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Virtual Foundry podcast. This is volume 3, episode 2. Today is Friday, February 25th, 2022. The time is 1:56 p.m. and the temperature is a cool 23 degrees Fahrenheit here in southern Wisconsin. That's -5 for you Celsius users. We're anxiously waiting for winter to move on out and for spring temperatures to come in, and I think it's going to happen any minute now.
Yep.
Today, we're going to be talking about the trophy. I'm Tricia Cease, president of the Virtual Foundry, and with me as always is Brad Woods, our founder, inventor, and all-around science guy. Say hello, Brad.
Hi, everybody.
So Brad, we're talking about the trophy today. Tell us about the trophy.
Okay, so this was a project that we probably started talking about at least in 2016. And the project was to make the trophies for 3dprintingindustry.com. Every year they give out the best of industry awards in probably, roughly 20 different categories, 20 to 25. And it's all based on votes from users and things like that. So some companies put a lot into it and they do advertising campaigns to get votes. And it was a really big deal. At this time, I was getting to know Michael Petch. And we were talking about it a bit. And he asked me if we'd be interested or able to 3D print metal trophies to be given out at the 3D Printing Industry Awards. And I knew that the people that were going to win these were high-end executives from the largest companies, places like, Desktop Metal was one of them, and 3D Systems, Stratasys won one. And it was sort of my genius idea to put a sample of our 3D printing, metal 3D printing technology in the hands of these people. And in my head, this was going to be the breakthrough moment. And these people are going to look at this trophy that's made out of metal, that's printed on an FDM printer, and everyone's going to be amazed. And we get tremendous amounts of publicity.
Yes, it sounds like an amazing opportunity. And before we go further, I'm going to show everybody the trophy. I have one here in front of me. Now, this is the top of a trophy. It's mounted to a plinth, a word I just learned today. The plinth is the base of the trophy. So that's what this piece was mounted to. So you can see it is an elaborate shape for 3D printing. This is copper and it's fully debound and sintered. And how many of these did you need to produce, Brad?
We shipped out 25 of them.
So that's quite a few. Why don't you walk us through the process? First of all, how did that particular shape get chosen?
Right. So 3D Printing Industry and the Virtual Foundry and My Mini Factory got together and we did a promotion that ran for, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 weeks. And people from all over the world submitted models. It was a competition and there were prizes. And I have some photos of some other ideas too. Right, so it was, so there were hundreds of submissions. I was very surprised at how much activity it actually generated. And so we went through and the winners were chosen by 3D Printing Industry, My Mini Factory, and the Virtual Foundry. And this is the one that we chose. And knowing what I know now, I would have picked a much less complex design. So purely on the merits, this definitely was the winner. But as far as a difficulty factor in the fabrication process, the shape was extremely difficult. It was the birth of 3D metal on a desktop printer. It just hadn't been done before. This was new. I wasn't even sure we could pull it off, especially not at this scale, but we did. And things got pretty interesting. We did get a fair amount of publicity. We did get a good amount of press, and it did raise our profile, but it didn't have the breakthrough that naive me thought we might get.
Yeah, this has happened to us a bunch of times over the years here. We thought that we would show people a certain thing or a certain technique, and it would just take off like wildfire. And as we know by now, we have been through this ringer enough times to know that things take time.
Yes. I have a couple pictures here. I'll talk a bit more about sort of the process. And all of these parts were printed on FlashForge 3D printers. So inexpensive. We bought 3 printers to get us through this project, and I just bought used ones, so we paid maybe $500 or $600 per printer. So here, I think Tricia may have already shown this one, but I'll show it anyway. Okay, share screen. So here's sort of the model on the left, the STL file. The one in the middle is printed in plastic, and the one on the right is printed in metal. Here's our print farm. This is modern. This is happening right now. This was one of the runner-ups. So we picked 3 winners, actually, and the 2 runner-ups, we made a metal 3D print for them and sent it to them. There's these 2 designs. Here they are. This is mounted on the plinth. So this is at 3dprintingindustry.com's headquarters as they were getting set up for the celebration. Here is, I meant to look this up, but I'm pretty sure he was the CEO of Stratasys at the time. Here is this is part of the messaging that 3dprintingindustry.com was sending out. Here's Michael Petch standing in front of the. This was actually a black tie dinner. This was a big deal, and they put a lot into it, and people came from all over the world. Another shot of the trophies. Another shot of the trophies, and these were copper. We weren't as experienced with bronze at the time, so we stuck to what we knew and made them out of copper. What else can I show you?
Now, how many of these were you able to print at one time on the FlashForge?
Exactly 1. And some days we would come in the morning and the printers would look kind of like this. This is Jeremiah. He has one of the trophies in his hand. That's our shop dog Gurr behind her. But Jeremiah and we worked for weeks on these and cleaning them up, getting them sintered, running them through the process.
So you did the same standard 3-step process that's in place today: print, debind, and sinter. Yes. Now the debind and sinter looked a little bit different at that time. We had some different materials and processes to use, and thankfully those have been refined to make them a lot easier and less messy today, but still going through that same basic 3-step process.
Yeah. We're still doing essentially exactly the same thing, but the process is refined and simplified. As an example, so here, we did this in an antique Duncan kiln, and we would do several at a time. And we didn't have a temperature controller or anything like that, so I was completely shooting from the hip, but we got him out the door. So in that process, so here's Jeremiah pulling one out of one of the smaller kilns and quenching it. He's dropping it into a bucket of water. And this can be a fairly spectacular spectacle when it's happening.
Yes, and thankfully we don't have to do that anymore today.
Right, and here he is pulling out a red hot crucible. But
yes, tell us about the polishing part of it. So you went through the print, debind, sinter process. Now you've got to make these things look like shiny, beautiful metal. How did you work that out?
Right. So it all done with this part of the process is not unique to the Virtual Foundry in any way. This is just how metal is processed. So it was the same as any jeweler or sculptor would do. We did some sanding, some grinding, and then ultimately buffing it with copper sewn buff. So most of the work was done with, for example, the like a flex shaft or something like that, which is basically a high-end Dremel tool. And the rest of it was done on a benchtop polishing motor. I'm not even sure what it's called.
So around here, we call this thing the trophy, because as we gain experience and knowledge in the industry, it's become very clear that this is a super challenging shape to have to make, especially 25 of these. But you made it happen, Brad, on subpar equipment, and they were sent out and they were beautiful. And we did happen to see some pieces of feedback that were very positive. So I'm going to pull one of those up right now. This was from Phil Hall, who was an award recipient. They did take a while. This particular piece took a while to get to him. He was getting a little frustrated by that process, but once it arrived, he was so pleased with it. It was worth the wait. Really loving the trophy that he received as a winner of a 3D PI award.
Yeah, it was a situation where, as a young business, and we were pretty inexperienced about how things work in timeline and such, and who would be impacted, all kinds of things. So it turned out to be a project we bit off probably more than we should have, but it also forced us to hunker down, improve the process, and develop new techniques for processing the parts. And yeah, I don't regret it for a minute. It was a really hectic few weeks, but it was worth it. And yeah, very happy with the outcome ultimately. And even though we didn't make a lot of money on it, we do have an exciting story or interesting story to share.
It is a great early story of the company, and one of the things that was happening when I joined the team. So I did get to be a part of it in the beginning, and it was really great to see these pieces get finished up and sent out the door, and then be handed out to the recipients of those awards. It was a very rewarding project.
Yes, it was fun.
Brad, I have one more very important question for you before we wrap up today.
All right.
Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
I can't imagine.
Because he was outstanding in his field.
That one I should have gotten.
You should have heard it before. That one comes to us from Case in Belgium. Thank you, Case. Joe, if you've got a joke you'd like to hear in one of our podcasts, reach out to me at info@thevirtualfoundry.com, and we'll include that and give you credit. If you have a cool project you want to talk about in this format, or if you have a topic request, something you'd like us to dig deeper on, send it in, info@thevirtualfoundry.com. We'd love to talk about it with you or for you. Thank you for joining us with the Virtual Foundry podcast today. From Brad and Tricia, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to count down and pause and then start.
Pledge. Lost my train of thought.